Hello everybody. This is Mark Shinesk, Senior Application Engineer with Seiler Design Solutions, and I welcome you all to this morning's webinar. We don't have a few people in today, so we'll just briefly begin here. So I've kind of evolved this from the original title. I'm going to call this Civil 3D and Revit Collaboration in BIM 360 Docs. We will be showing you in this webinar how to set up your Civil 3D and Revit models to coordinate with each other, specifically in sharing existing and design surfaces across from the engineering and site design phase to the Revit model for use in landscape and site design within Revit, and to keep those models coordinated with each other very easily. I have added a handout of the PowerPoint here that you can download at any time. So please be ready to go. Oh, I forgot to share my screen. Did I not share my screen? Thank you for that. There we go. Apologize for that. You hear me talking. Thank you, John. I'm assuming that's John there. Thank you for doing that. I thought the screen shared when I first started. So anyway, here is the quick PowerPoint. So I'm not going to talk too much about the PowerPoint. I'm not a big one on that, but I will go ahead and go through that. Again, welcome. And this is Civil 3D and Revit Collaboration in BIM 360 Docs. So in this, what we'll be doing here is we're going to understand setting up your project workspace in BIM 360 Docs and Design. We'll share coordinates between Civil 3D and the Revit models, and share the Civil 3D surface and design data in BIM 360 Docs. Okay. In BIM 360 Design, we'll publish our Revit model to BIM 360 Design project. Now I've done that. I'll show you how the project is set up and the steps to make sure that Revit model is published up there for use with BIM 360 Design. Upload other documents as necessary. You can even copy CAD files up there. You don't have to have just your your Revit models and other documentation. You can actually publish some of your CAD documents. Now there is limited what's the worst use that you can use. I mean, you can share your CAD documents across there, even with X references, but at this time there's still no mechanism in place to deal with design data shortcuts. I know that the Autodesk design team is working on that currently, and it won't be too long before we'll have a robust workflow for infrastructure and civil projects, including data shortcuts available to us in BIM 360 Docs and BIM 360 Design. And also we'll talk about the desktop connector. You'll need to install and download. If you're part of a BIM 360 Docs and Design project, you'll need to download and install the Autodesk Desktop Connector. That gives you online desktop connectability to any projects that you have been invited to, or a project manager or administrator of. So you can copy, kind of works in a line like Dropbox or another file sharing. You can copy files to your local computer and they will sync up to the cloud on the BIM 360 site. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, and we'll also export our Revit model to Civil 3D. I'll show you some parameters on doing that to create a drawing format. We'll import our Revit model into Civil 3D, and we'll align it and use the shared reference points to share the final building location back to the Revit model, and we'll bring that in created shared coordinates in Revit, so we can change our coordinate system to our site model and make it work so that the two softwares will talk back to each other, and then we'll publish our Civil 3D surface to BIM 360 and link that topography into our Revit model. So with that, I'm going to get out of the PowerPoint. Let's go ahead and demo. You can see on my desktop here, I have a web browser open to my BIM 360 project. I have created a project in BIM 360 Docs and Design for this particular model. I'm putting everything in my project files. Now, when you're collaborating between your Revit model and BIM 360 docs, if you're going to do that document collaboration, at this time, you must make sure you put your Revit models in the project files section of BIM 360 and not in the plans. So I've made some subfolders here, Civil 3D for my Civil 3D drawing. There's my active drawing. I put a copy of the PowerPoint in this as well as my Revit file. Now, if I open up my Revit model, I have already gone ahead and linked this model to my project. And the way I would do that otherwise is let me open up a different model. I have another copy here that's just basically it's the same one. So this has not been uploaded to Revit or up to BIM 360 Design. But if I've set up my model, let's say I've set up my project in BIM 360 docs, I've given myself in the document management, I've gone ahead and set up and activated the design service. Back here in Revit, I can go ahead and go to my collaborate, and I can hit the tab and hit the collaborate button, set my active work set, get that set up, and I can either do it within my network using my hardware, or I can say in BIM 360 document management. Now, I am performing all this functionality currently in Revit and Civil 3D 2019 because the shared reference point module has not been released for 2020 yet, so I can't demonstrate that. It should come out shortly when I get to that stage, and so currently I'm stuck using 2019.2. But in this case, so I'm going to collaborate, then I would say collaborate in my BIM 360 documents management. And once I do that, it's going to ask me for my project. Now, this is the functionality of the Autodesk Desktop Connector. It's letting me browse to my particular project. There's my Revit files folder, and then I can say initiate. And what it's going to do is it's going to take this model, it would upload it to the cloud. So I'll hit initiate here. It's going to start my work sharing, create my default work sets, upload this model to the cloud, and also save a copy of my model back to the local cache. Now, instead of opening this model from my desktop, I would go ahead and load it up from the cloud every single time, and I'll be ready to go. And then every time I save, I will be copying my files back to the cloud for collaboration for other members who are working on those work sets that are assigned. I'm not going to get into the assignment of work sets and collaboration and setting up requests or permissions and all that. That's for another webinar, another time. But this is just the basic copying of that file up to let you know what I have done already. Okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to open up my previous model I've already done here. I'm going to close this and go back to my original model. Keep ownership on this. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can see in my base Revit opening screen, you can see my recent models, and those that have been set up for collaboration will have the little symbol here next to it. So I'm going to open up the one that I plan on using. So you can see that it is downloading and opening up my local cache or any changes that have been made from the cloud. So if I look on my BIM 360 docs under Revit files, there's the one I'm working on at the top. Here's the one right here that I just uploaded, and it's ready to go as well. But I'm currently working on this one, so we'll just keep on going with that. Okay. So if I'm going to collaborate between Revit and Civil 3D, what I'm going to have to do is export a copy of what I want to share to the Civil 3D model from my Revit model. Now, I've made some views here already. I have a first floor building outline. This is what I would typically want to share out, like either your building outline, or maybe I would actually just draw the line work for the outline and share that out. But for the purposes of what I'm going to do for this, if I'm trying to share my building outline to the civil engineer so he can put it on the site and make his site grading to it, make sure that we have the right grading to the entrances and stuff. I would select my view, what I'm going to share. I'll come here and say File, and I'll export CAD DWG. So I'm going to export this out as a DWG model. I can choose multiple models if I want to export, but I'm just going to do at this time just this current first floor plan that I've set up. I've set up the view visibility and the graphics that I want, the graphics display options, exactly how I want the engineer to see it. I'll go ahead and say next, and then give it a location. I'm going to save it, on this case, to my desktop, or I could even save it to the BIM 360 project if I want to. If I go to my computer, and then you'll see my devices and drives here. This is my BIM 360. This is from the Desktop Connector. I can say BIM 360, go to my project. There's my collaboration project. There's project files. There's Civil 3D. Maybe I'm going to save it right under here. And I'll say OK. And it's going to save that to that location. All right. And it takes a few minutes for it to sync up to the cloud, but on my local computer, I should be able to access that already because it is actually on a local cache on my computer. So I'm going to go into my Civil 3D project, and here I have a little subdivision. Let's say I'm going to do a lot and block plan here for a site layout for construction. We've gone ahead, we've graded the site out for mass grading. We're going to put this house or this building on a lot and do the final grading for that. I'm going to pick lot 43 where this is going to go. So right now, my drawing that I've exported out of Revit is in its own little local coordinate system. So in this case, I'm going to come to my insert, and I'm going to insert and attach that as a XREF. I'm going to go to my where I've saved it, this PC, BIM 360. I'm going to go to my project file, Civil 3D. There's that exported file that I've got. I'm going to say open. So this is just a plain XREF. I'm going to specify a location on here. I want to put the building right here, let's say in the middle of my lot. I'm just setting it in there, and I'm going to rotate this. Let's say I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. Okay, I would take the time to set my building with setbacks and all the stuff that I would normally do to set this building on the lot. And once I get this final location, I want to be able to share this back to the architect there who's working on the Revit model so that they understand in relationship to where this house or this building is in relationship to the lot in real world coordinates. So I'm going to use a tool that is downloaded and installed in each product called the Shared Reference Point. And in Civil 3D, that's under the Subscription Extension Manager under Autodesk Shared Reference Point. Again, this is currently only available up to 2019. It has not been released for 2020 yet. So I'll expand on that. I will run the Export Shared Reference Points. I'll select my origin. So what I'm going to do is set up, this is the coordinate that I'm going to share back, and I'm going to provide which way is north. And then it's going to select my coordinates X, Y, and Z. Oop, I didn't have my Z here. I'm going to need to set that first. So I'm going to highlight my feature line 999685 because I want to provide this elevation as well. So I'm going to change this XREF so it is elevated to at 999.685. So now this is actually the three coordinates that I want to share back. So I'm going to run that again. I'm going to select my origin point, and then here it says select point on the plus Y axis. And now here you can see the coordinates. This is the origin for that point and the rotation, and this is in feet. I'll click OK, and what it's going to do is it's going to write back an XML file. So I'm going to share this XML file back. Again, I'm going to go to my BIM 360, go to my project files, and maybe I'll put this in documents, and I'll say this is, I'm going to rename this, and I'll say building shared reference point or site shared reference point. So building shared reference point XML, and save that. And now that is available for my Revit model. So back in my Revit model, I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to come to the add-ins. Now, if I was like say in another location or another team, I would be given a notice, hey, I've created a shared reference point to share with you. Here is the location, go ahead and import that. So back in my Revit model, I'm going to come here to my add-ins tab, and there you will see the import shared coordinates from XML file. This is the Revit half of that shared coordinates. So I'm going to click that, and then I'm immediately taken to collect 2 points. And I was told this corner was the origin point, and then I picked this point right here as my plus Y, or my north direction. So I'll click that, and then it asks me to go ahead and open up that XML file. So I'm going to browse through my Autodesk Desktop Connector to my BIM 360 site, to that documents, and there's that shared reference point XML. And I'll click open. Are you sure you want to create the new shared coordinates building shared reference point? I'll say yes, and it has successfully created build shared reference point. Okay, so if I look back at my Civil 3D model, if I ID'd this corner right here, you can see what the coordinates are. Oops. You can see the coordinates are down here as X in the 4040, Y 5080, Z 999. If I go back to my Revit model, I have another view here, just my first floor plan. I've set a little coordinate marker here. You can see my northing and easting don't match those at all, even though I've brought in my shared reference point. What we have to do is we have to activate that shared reference point in here to change the site coordinates, and that's done through the Manage tab. And under Manage tab, I'll click under Project Location, I'll click the Location tool. I'll come over here to Site, and right now I'm using the internal current coordinate system, but there you can see listed my building shared reference point system that I just brought in. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to make that current. And as soon as I do and click OK, you can see that my coordinates now have changed, so that point has been activated, and I have a new coordinate system in my model. And then for any view here, if I'm in a plan view, I'm given the ability, the option under my properties window to change the orientation. Instead of project north, I can now change that to true north if I wanted to, and my model rotates to mimic and match the true north layout conditions of my Civil 3D model. Once I've done that, I am now able to go ahead and export my surface up to the Revit model and bring that in. Just as a side, I'm going to go back to my model. You know those files that I've been adding up there, that XML file and that exported drawing file. I put those in my Autodesk Desktop Connector. As time goes in my documents, those items, there's that XML file, and in Civil 3D, there's that exported drawing file. Those items, because they're using the Autodesk Desktop Connector, they're automatically being added to the BIM 360 website and synchronizing back and forth between the two. Okay. So with that, I'm going to go back to my Civil 3D model. So now that my Revit model has been set up and ready to receive the surface data, and I go back to my AutoCAD Civil 3D model, and here's my surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share. I have just a small grading set that I've done for these lots. This is the surface I want to be able to share so that the site designer or the architect can go ahead and see my model data. So in order to do that, there's a couple locations I can do that within Civil 3D 2019. Up here on my Output tab, you'll see Publish Surfaces, and also on my Collaborate tab, you'll also see Publish Surfaces. So it's the same command in both locations, but all I'm going to do is go ahead and click that Publish Surfaces. It's going to say, okay, these are the surfaces we have available. In this case, I just want to publish that lot grade from corridor. So I'm going to uncheck everything else except that one, because that's the only one I'm going to do. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. Again, I'm going to save it under my Desktop Connector, and under my project, under Project Files, under Civil 3D, and I'm going to call it Subdivision Civil 3D Shared. So shared, there's the name of the original drawing, and then shared is what's going to be the shared surface out. So I'll go ahead and hit Save and hit OK. And it's going to say, okay, oh, I got to do something, one thing. I'm getting this dialog box. The surface being published uses a style that produces inaccurate results. I'm going to cancel this, okay? So right now, my surface style in Civil 3D, this is very important for you. This style, current style, I cannot share out and have it usable in my Revit model. I'm going to have to change my Civil 3D surface style to something that can be used by the Revit model. So I'm going to come here to my prospector. Actually, I'm going to do it here. I'm just going to click on my surface properties. I love contextual ribbons. And I'm going to change this to triangles. So I have a triangles only surface style. And I also gave it a render material of site work, planting, grass, short. But I can change that style. You can see everything. I'm just doing triangles. So the triangles will be enough to be able to be consumed by the Revit model. I'll hit OK, and now you can see my triangulated surface in there. Now I can go ahead here into my Collaborate, Publish Surfaces, go make sure that I am pointing in the right folder, which I am, and which surface I want, just the lot grade, and click OK, and it has now gone through and published my surface. If I look at my desktop connector, under this PC, BIM 360, here is my project files, Civil 3D. There is that shared drawing, okay? From there, I can come back and in my Revit model, once I'm done now, so I'm going to change to a different view here. I have one, I like this one here. This is a cool plan. I'm going to bring it in this view so you can see how it will relate with my project. So again, I've shared my coordinates back in here. I've set my coordinates to those shared coordinates. And now I'm going to go ahead and bring in that topo surface. So in that, I'm just going to come here to the Insert tab, and I'm going to click the button here that says Link Topography. Okay, and it's going to ask me where I'm going to look. It's automatically gone to my last project I was in, but it's automatically gone to my BIM 360 projects. Under my current project, under Civil 3D, there is that file. Okay, so it knows which one to look for. I'm going to click that and say link, and it's going to bring that in. Now we'll get a dialog box. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. Click close, and there's my surface. So you can see that surface has now been brought into my model. I've kind of made that view transparent a little bit. Maybe I'll go ahead and select my surface. Actually, I'll change my visibility. I'll come down here under topography. I got it a little bit transparent. Maybe I'll turn my transparent off down a little bit so you can kind of see how it okay, there you go. So you can kind of see how it relates to the surface, and it actually came in right where my ground was. So that's basically how I shared my surface out from Civil 3D to my site. I can now go ahead and do any kind of final site design or some site work in here, add materials as I need to for a final grade in this. Or if something changes back here in the Civil 3D world, let's say I went ahead and changed my my surface slopes. I've changed these polylines in here, my feature lines, changed my model here, and I reshared this surface back to the model because it's tied into the BIM 360 docs, and I've done that linked share. It will update in this model over time as well, and then I'll always have the latest surface available to me in my project, regardless of what the site designer used. So every time the site designer shares his surface up in my Revit model, I'll always get the latest and greatest civil site model. And that's what I had to show you there with that. The other thing that the shared reference points lets me do is if I did share out a new model, let's say I wanted to share out a 3D model or 3D site using shared reference points. Let's see if I got another one here. If I did decide to come here and say File, Export, CAD Drawing, DXF, or DWG, if I export this out and save this one, so this is 3D view. Because I've set up those shared reference points already back in Civil 3D, if I wanted to insert that model as an XREF into my drawing, let's see, which one's the 3D view? Setup. It's already set to go. I don't have to, I can just change my insertion point to 0, 0, 0, my scale to 1, 1, 1, my rotation to 0, click OK, and that model should come right into my drawing. Oh, it didn't, and I know why. Forget I said that. Let's try this again. I have to do it from a plan view. I can't do it from the 3D. It doesn't look like. Let's see, 3D, File, Export. Oh, I know why. DWG. I have to change my settings here so that it is using my foot coordinates and use the shared coordinate system. That's why I didn't. So I need to set this up in my drawing export to use the shared coordinate system. Now I can hit next, and now I can resave it. So let me save over top of that one. Come back to my Civil 3D drawing, insert and attach that XREF again. Boom, and now it's in sight. And now it still came down here. Okay, well, I guess I'm having some issues with that one. Technically, it's supposed to come in here, and maybe it's the way I had it set up, or I didn't save something, or I did not overwrite properly. But just make sure that when you export out from Revit that second time that you set up make sure it uses the shared coordinates when it exports. And that's what I have for this webinar. It was going to be a nice short one. Does anybody have any questions? No questions, no hands. Well, I hope this has provided some value to you. I hope you can use this information in sharing your surface data and coordinating between Civil 3D and your Revit models using BIM 360 Docs and BIM 360 Design. You can use the shared reference points and export surfaces out without that as well, but it's a little more cumbersome. This is really a supreme, method for using, this shared data back and forth. Again, we've been told in time that the ability to use BIM 360 Docs and Design with infrastructure models will improve. There'll be the ability to use data shortcuts and allow infrastructure to really leverage the power of BIM 360 Docs and Design. So with that, this webinar has been recorded, so if you want to share it with others after the fact, everybody will receive an email at the end of the webinar. I thank you very much for coming, everybody. Then take you some time out of your lunchtime to enjoy. I hope you learned something of it, and with that, I will sign off, and thank you very much for coming. Bye-bye now.